Thanks a lot. Thank you for the invitation. I think you can see my presentation right now. That's what I'm hoping. That's what I'm assuming here. So what I would like to do is to tell you the story of a project that we did, which was trying to get organized pretty much digitally. So here's the true story of how we built our online collection. Just a few words about me. As you said, I'm head of digital at SMK, and I was also head of this very cool project with some very cool colleagues as well. So let me just tell you that although SMK, the National Gallery of Copenhagen, has produced material for decades, even centuries, this material was not well organized. So there was video, we had audio files, we had metadata, we had photos of the art, we had lots of things, blog entries, websites, but all this material was sort of findable and usable in the same way that the things that are in the office of my colleague Mikael are findable and useful. So I'm sure that Mikael knows where things are. I'm sure that very few of his colleagues know where things are, and I'm sure that nobody outside the museum can find things in his office. And this was kind of the situation for us when we set out on this project. So fortunately, we had a lot of meetings over the years. We had given this a lot of thought, and our answer to many of the questions concerning digital strategy was very clear. It was to be very open. So one of our main ambitions was and is to eradicate all barriers between all this material that SMK produces and has produced and the people, the public, the taxpayers, the people who are supposedly the owners of this material and who might be able to use it if they could find it. So our strategy was very much one of openness. We spent a lot of time dealing with formal issues like licensing and so on. This was very much in place. Then we set out a few goals, and they sound very banal maybe, but not so much in practice. So one goal was to make all this wonderful material actually useful by making it findable, searchable, sortable, and usable for normal people. Another goal, I think equally important, was to create a setup, create a system which would make future material useful. So not just create something that would work in the now and here, but make a kind of setup, an infrastructure, a system that would also ensure that future work was made available in the same platform. This is a very grown-up concept, I think. It's also kind of you could say, realistic, you could also say pessimistic premise that we were very unsure that if we built a system which would take a lot of future effort, would it then actually survive the cruelties of economic ups and downs and so on. We thought probably not. It probably would not be wise to make a system which would rely heavily on human editors making stuff, building stuff. So preparing for the worst, I guess, we wanted to make a system that would automatically take all the work that's been done in the museum in terms of metadata, in terms of writing texts, taking photos, scanning models, all this, and just put our hands on it and pull it into the system more or less automatically. It would be wonderful if it turned out that the future was bright and the economy was wonderful and all this, but we did not rely on it based on past experience. Some things we have learned. So we wanted to do two things: take all the stuff, connect it, make it useful, make it findable, make sure that the system could not be shut down very easily, and make sure that it would also grasp all material made in the future. So that was kind of our lofty goals at the time. And how did we sort of envision that this would play out? We certainly wanted to build these three main components. We wanted to do lots of other stuff as well, a lot of outreach stuff, but we wanted to build an infrastructure consisting of these things. So the first and maybe the most central is the SMK API. That is the data source that external parties could use to build on top of SMK knowledge. Also the tool that we ourselves could use to build our own stuff, which has many interesting advantages. So on top of this, we wanted to build a new version of the SMK main website, which was very old, very clunky. We wanted to also build an online collection interface. We call the online collection SMK Open. Those are the things that we wanted to build mainly. There are also these other things that sort of went along with that. We also built other, I mean, an asset management system for the museum. We didn't really have one, and a few other things that I won't go into right now. So what did we envision? What did we have in mind? We had in mind this wonderful sunshiny path through an open landscape where we would sort of fulfill our mission and complete our plans, right? You know how it is. You're in the beginning of a project, you have funding. What could possibly go wrong at this point? Well, a few things threatened to stop us. A few things threatened to sort of undermine our wondrous plans. Not because anybody sort of opposed us. It's very hard to oppose openness, I have found. You have to be very subtle and very advanced about it. So when I go sort of around preaching these open glam gospel, very few people say, no, we don't want openness, we want you to close off stuff. That's not what happens. But of course, other things outside of our control might happen. For instance, the Danish government and the Danish parliament chose in their wisdom to centralize all IT from all government institutions in one place. There's good reasons for this move, but it's also like an earthquake under a project trying to tie together systems and resources that are digital. So very early in the project, we had to sort of redraw all our diagrams and just the museum's IT department was shut down. All resources was transferred to this central organization, which would then handle all this IT. They were not specifically attuned to openness. I think their primary goal was the opposite. The primary goal was security, was to not let data flow loose sort of freely. We had a rather difficult time adjusting these things, but it happened. Another thing that happened was that in this very same period, it was decided that not only should all government institutions centralize their IT, all Danish museums that receive any kind of state subsidy, that is that they're acknowledged by the state, had to take all their collections databases and merge them into one centralized database, codenamed Sarah. Not entirely sure how the Swedish setup is, but you can sort of imagine the sort of catastrophic nature, the enormous nature, at least, of this project, and the many discussions, interesting discussions that ensued from this. But it also meant that for us, we had to reconsider where we got all our data in this project. So not just from sort of the SMK setup that we knew and loved, or at least knew, but now from something that didn't really exist at the time, but which was sort of written into law and then would exist at some times in the future. So also a kind of a shock to our plans. Then there was the third thing that happened, sort of on this kind of different plane, but also quite impactful. COVID, complex set of impacts for our project. We had to resaddle a lot of things. I change a lot of strategies and plans. Do many things. There are also sort of advantages of COVID to digital dissemination, as you know. Suddenly you get a lot of attention, there's a lot of interest in what you're doing, but it certainly also was a kind of shock to our plans. And being sort of hit, if you will, by these events, we sat down and tried to sort of think our way through what to do, how to approach, how to get over this. And I think we made an effort to sort of tell ourselves, okay, there are all these things happening, but they're kind of external things, right? Maybe we shouldn't have been so optimistic, but at least they're not sort of core problems with the project's philosophy. They're not like people on the inside of the museum have sort of rallied and brought out the torches and pitchforks against us. It's not a problem of what we were thinking. It's sort of something that happens to us, and it happens to every project. And so we managed to sort of work around these sort of external things that we sort of felt were sort of besetting us in the project. And one thing we did, and I'm sure a lot of you have done in recent years, is sort of reconsider your resources, right? Because they're probably not as impressive as they were. We thought, how can we compensate for these delays in the project? And one thing we considered was, let's try to do everything in the easiest possible way. Let's not maybe spend all the time we had planned on getting things entirely right with all our colleagues in the museum. Let's try to automate things, right? Let's bring in the robots. Let's see what we can do if we are short of time and we just need things done very quickly. So we sort of look towards artificial intelligence and solutions in that area. From the very banal, we had thousands, maybe 30,000 images that were not cropped correctly. They had frames, they had color codes. This was something that machine learning could help us with. So we brought in the machines, taught them what a frame looks like, and asked them to please help us crop all these images. And largely they did. This was a very simple procedure, not a very controversial one, but a very useful one, I think. And then we also thought, okay, we have this material. For instance, we have all these artworks, and they're represented by images and metadata. So we have an artist name, we have a title of the artwork, we have dates and stuff. What can we do with that if we're short of time? So we built a series of apps, a series of functions that would just attack this material that we had and try to extract everything we could from it. So here's a long list of things that we built to automatically analyze our artworks. There's an object recognizer looking for dogs and sunsets and lamps and all these things. Color detector, what are the main colors in the artwork? Hyponym parser, trying to find out word classes. So there's a dog, but it's also an animal, and make that more searchable from there. Similar works matcher, try to find things that look sort of the same. Location detector, try to find out using the metadata what this image portrays, where that is, find text in images, try to OCR them, try to figure out what they're saying, use that for search. Language detector, this is a kind of a hack, because in the new SARA, the national database, has issues with defining languages. So we built sort of this machine learning system that would find out if things were in Danish or English or French, for instance. We wanted to import tags from Wikidata, from manually input tags from there, and so on. A lot of things that we then automatically applied and apply to data in our system. So let's return to PC Skovgaards, Højerup Kirke på Stevns Klint. If we run this through an object recognizer, this is Microsoft's Vision API, it returns keywords. And this is importantly, our data contained no descriptive keywords at all, 0. 0 was the number of keywords that sort of people in the museum had managed to put in over the centuries. There wasn't any. So it was hard to search this if you're sort of a normal person, not an art historian maybe. So these are the tags that we get back from Microsoft: sky, nature, cloud, tree, grass, landscape, outdoor. There's a lot of other objects that Microsoft suggests, but these are the ones that it's fairly sure of. These are the ones that we then import. There's a lot of interesting discussion about this, of course, and the many ways that this can go wrong, but it's much better than the 0 that we had before. Also, these are tags imported from Wikidata. These are manually inserted tags that people have put into Wikidata, and then we just import into our data and use as well for search. So kind of useful. We look for different word classes in the text that we can find. We find a noun in the title, kirke, church. We try to find synonyms and hyponyms. This is not a very useful one. House of God is the one that we find for a church. Maybe not the thing that people search for most on our website, but you get the idea of how this works. And also we can see, or our little robots can see that, oh, here's a location name, and we can look that up in Google Maps API, and that gives us location data, and that we can use to show a lot of things about the location of this artwork. We extract some main colors. That makes it possible to search our collection by color. We find similar artworks, things that these little robots believe look more or less the same. We find other formal properties of the artwork. And by doing all this, we were able to, I think, maybe slightly pretentiously launch our website at a very festive event at the museum. And we have now an SMK API, we have a main website, we have an SMK open platform where all these things come together, and they work fairly well, despite all the problems in the process. And just and I'll stop talking in a few seconds, just to show you that there's interest. Fortunately, in the online collection, it goes up and down, and there's lockdowns and stuff happening. But it was very fortunate that we were able to launch the online collection in December of 2019, just a few months before the lockdown. We had actually some very sort of favorable press coverage, sort of praising us that we were able to so quickly react to COVID and build an online collection. It had been sort of in the works for 3 years at that time, but that was kind of nice. So that brings me to the end of my presentation. Thank you for listening.